Hey y'all, I hope everyone had a great 4th of July. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you all about produce, fruits and vegetables, plants, and how to turn this into this cool houseplant, this into this, these into these little plants, or even how to grow a jalapeno pepper. Before we get started, let's go walk through the garden so I can show you where some of this produce came from. These are tomatoes. If you didn't know, tomatoes start green, and they're actually picked green in the field, and then they ripen into a dark red. So every tomato starts as a flower like this, which ends up dying off. You can tell this was the flower, which turns into a tomato, which grows larger and eventually gets ripe where it's ready to pick, and then it turns into a red.
Okay guys, so an interesting thing about tomatoes, like I said, they do start green and then they'll grow red when they're ready to be picked and harvested because they'll ripen. But tomatoes are actually fruit, and they're fruit because they produce seeds like any other vegetable that produces seeds. But in 1887, the U.S. imposed a tariff on import vegetables so they could tax vegetables that come into ports. And a few years later, in 1893, a case went to the Supreme Court about tomatoes specifically. And the Supreme Court ruled that a tomato, because it's eaten with dinner and not dessert, is by definition a vegetable, so they could tax tomatoes. And that's where the confusion on is a tomato a vegetable or a fruit. That's where that stems from. So the plant is still, like, they consider the plant to be a fruit, but they consider the fruit to be a vegetable. And that way, like, this is a green tomato, but that way they could tax them. Yeah, so if we'll walk down here and look at some more of their garden.
So this is what a potato plant looks like. Potato was actually the first plant to be grown in space. So in 1997, the Columbia Space Shuttle grew a potato plant. Right here is a red bell pepper, and then we have green bell pepper, chili peppers, and you can see those, jalapeno peppers. Some of these are ready to be picked. Behind it we have squash. Squash, like some other, most flowering plants have male and female flowers actually, and that's they can't produce fruit without having both. So this is a female flower, and these are male flowers. So like this right here is a female flower that has a squash on it. And if a bee or ant or something comes and gets the pollen from a male flower and pollinates this female flower, it will grow into a squash like these. So this is actually probably ready to be harvested. Kind of small, but we'll wash it.
Okay guys, so some other interesting things about vegetables or vegetable plants. A vegetable is technically considered any part of the plant that we harvest to eat. So greens, leafy greens, all of those are considered vegetables. Celery, because we eat the stalk. root vegetables like carrots and onions and potatoes. All of those are vegetables. And then things like squash, tomatoes, cucumbers, beans, zucchini, eggplant, all of those stem from a flower that produces, this is the ovary that contains seeds. So any vegetable that contains seeds is technically a fruit. That's something interesting. Like broccoli and cauliflower are technically flowers. Corn is technically a grass. Something interesting about eggplants and potatoes is that they're from the same plant family. Watermelon is in some way categorized as a vegetable. Something a lot of people don't know is that watermelon seeds are actually edible. So you can roast them just like sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds. If you didn't know, pumpkin seeds were edible too. But watermelon seeds is really high in zinc and magnesium and iron, which helps in like skin and nail and hair growth, your blood, antioxidants. Back to the skin thing, people will take sunflower seeds to tan. Speaking of skin and tanning, carrots and other orange root vegetables like sweet potato, carrots and sweet potato, they have a chemical compound that's really good for, eyesight, but also skin. So people will eat that in hopes to tan more or to tan without burning.
We'll start by showing you how you can take a tomato that you're gonna eat and how to process it to get the seeds out so you can sprout your own tomato plants. Okay, so first we're gonna take a tomato and with the help of an adult, you're gonna cut it. Let's cut this one. And this cutting board is clean and the knife is clean. Okay, so we're gonna take one of these wheels. Okay, then I'm gonna take a paper towel. Okay, after I have the wheels, I'm gonna take just my finger and push some of these out and onto a paper towel, just like this. Remember, this cutting board and my knife are clean. My hands may have some dirt on them, some soil, potting soil. Okay. So now I'm going to rinse these off in some water. Just right here. Okay, so now I have 4 little tomato seeds. All I'm gonna do is take a cup with some soil. I'm gonna take some soil, some potting soil. Okay. Rinse my hands off. Okay, so with a cup of potting soil, I'm just going to take my seeds and push them just on the surface. See, there's one. I'm just gonna gently sprinkle them on top. Yeah, come on. Okay, and then one more. And then I'm just gonna mix them in a little bit to get them covered with the soil. So any seed only needs warmth and moisture, so a little bit of heat and some water to germinate. They don't even need soil. So I'm gonna take a jar of water and just wet the top. That should be enough. I'm just gonna take a toothpick, because I have it, and just mix it in a little bit. If you put this in your windowsill or, you know, on top of the refrigerator, anywhere, you take anywhere from 4 to 14 days, and you should have little sprouts. And then in about 4 weeks, you should have a plant about this size. Okay, next I'm gonna show you how you can take a pineapple and cut the top off, put it in some water, and how to grow a houseplant out of the top of a pineapple. So with the help of an adult, you're just gonna take it and cut it right at the top. So you're just gonna cut the top off. And you can do this before it's ripe, before it's ready to eat. It'll continue to ripen. So I'm just gonna put my pineapple back over here. And then I'm gonna take the top. So you can tell this has got a bunch of leaves. So what you do, you just trim this up a little bit. Again, using a sharp knife and a parent or an adult, older sibling. Okay, so just discard that. And then what I'm gonna do is just pull off these little leaflets. All the way about an inch up, I'm gonna pull them. And then clean it up. And what this is doing is like damaging some of the plant tissue, so roots will sprout out of that when it's put into water, or you could put it into some moist soil, but water works fine. Okay, so now I'm gonna take some toothpicks. And this step is, I mean, it's kind of optional, you don't have to, but I'm just gonna take the toothpicks and stick them in to give the plant some support, so it's not just in water when you put it into the water, to keep the leaves out of it. Okay, so what I like to do is then go in and just cut any leaves that are ugly out. The more leaves they have, the more energy the plant is going to be putting into try to photosynthesize or make food from those leaves. And we really want the plant to focus its energy on just making roots right now. So I'm just gonna thin all these out, leaving some of the pretty ones, because it does need some to live. Mainly cutting the bottom off and any of, some of the dead ones off the top, or some that have like bruising. This one's kind of brown. Okay. And then what I'm gonna do is top my jar off with some more water. And then I'm going to put this in. Okay, so I did this a little too shallow. We're gonna move the toothpicks up about a ½ inch so that more of it's submerged in the water. Oh, that one broke, but it's okay. Okay, so overflowed, but that's all right. So now you can tell the water is at the top. It's submerged a little bit. And you have the pineapple top. You can just set this in your windowsill, and in a few weeks, hopefully, it'll start producing roots. And I'll show you an example of one I did about 2 months ago. So this is one that really needs to be transplanted now. I started this about 2 months ago. I used the same process, and if you look, it's growing roots. So now this is, and it's got new growth. It's doing really well. It needs to be put into a pot and put into a sunny, warm room, because they are tropical plants. Let's see, I'll move this over and show y'all. This is one that is about 2 years old. You can tell how big this is. This started from a pineapple that I was, had and was gonna throw the top away, but using the same process, cutting the top off, trimming the leaves, putting it in some water, letting it grow roots, and then putting it in soil. This is 2 years later, and it's not huge, but it is a pretty house plant. And I like to know that it was free and that I did it. So it doesn't take much. You can do this at home. So now I'm going to show y'all how to grow fruit trees from fruits I've eaten. So the first thing you're going to do is take your piece of fruit and get the seeds out of it. So with the help of an adult, you're just going to cut your fruit up like you would if you were going to eat it. And then you're gonna take the seeds out. There's another seed in here. Okay, you're gonna just keep taking the seeds out. Okay, so that's an apple. And I'm just gonna clean the seeds off, get the rest of the plant matter off of it. I may, rinse them off, run them under some water. So we have 4 apple seeds. Probably get some more from right here. Okay. So 3, 6, 9. We're gonna cut up an orange. Again, with the help of an adult. I already see seeds. I'm just gonna fish them out. Maybe quarter it again. So we've got 5 orange seeds so far. Okay. So what I like to do after I've eaten the fruit and collected the fruit seeds is to just put them all into a wet paper towel. We've got some apple seeds and some orange. And the reason you put them in a wet paper towel is because they need some moisture. And then I like to roll them up and put them into a Ziploc bag just so that they don't dry out. And the Ziploc bag helps to retain some heat because seeds need warmth to germinate. And after a couple days to a week of being in here, they'll look like something like this. This is an apple seed that's germinated. After they've sprouted, you can put them into some soil, and after a few weeks, they should start to look something like this. This is a blueberry seedling, a peach seedling, and this back here is a lemon seedling. And now that they're in some soil, they should really start to take off. Soon they'll need to be transplanted and separated into like 1 gallon pots. But again, I've mentioned this before in the video, you don't need any fancy planters to get started. I mean, you can just use a tin can with some soil or a bottle that you have. You can even use candle containers. After the candles burn up, you can clean them out. They look something like this. Hey y'all, I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. I hope you take what you've learned and you try it yourselves. Thanks for watching.